Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of the Blues Brothers podcast, a show that discusses all things football and particularly Chelsea FC with plenty of debates, questions, and deliberations made by the fans for the fans. And I'm delighted tonight to be joined by the man behind the CFC Pys Twitter account. Pys, welcome to the podcast. Firstly, thanks for taking the time to join me, mate. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's cool, bro. I'm glad to be here. I like doing different mini podcasts and discussing Chelsea. So yeah, I'm always glad to be on discussing Chelsea. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Nah, good stuff, mate. I mean, before we get into it, I like to start the podcast off with a simple question for the guests. Why Chelsea for you, Pys? What's the story behind that, and how you got into following the club?
Yeah, well, it was actually quite funny because I didn't really originally like football when I was much younger. Obviously, I'm not really old now. I'm 20, but when I was younger, I wasn't really keen into football. But my family, my dad and my brother have always supported Chelsea, and they kind of got me into it. So yeah, I think the first game I watched was an FA Cup final between Chelsea and Arsenal, I want to say. It may have been, I think it was 2008, but I remember my first game was 2009 at home. And yeah, I go to the games regularly, most of the time anyway. Yeah, I'm probably overly passionate about Chelsea now. I probably care too much. I mean, when we drew to, who was it? Who did we draw to? Burnley, yeah. We drew to Burnley. I was annoyed about that. But then the West Ham game, man, I took a good, good 2-3 days to solidly kind of get over that and move on. I think it was just because we hadn't lost in such a long time.
Yeah.
So I kind of, yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, family basically is the short answer.
Yeah, no, fair. I was the same with the West Ham game. It just ruins the weekend, and the fact we gifted them 2 goals and gave them the win made it even worse. But I mean, mate, moving on to kind of a situation that's been rumbling on for a while now. It's been known for months now that Rudiger has not signed his contract extension. He obviously wants parity. I've seen you tweeted something out just beforehand that the offer on the table, he's still not getting paid more than the likes of Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Werner, Lukaku, etc. I just wanted to bring something up on Twitter now. I'm just going to share it on the screen. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll obviously see this. For those of you listening, you won't. Does it surprise you, Pys, to see that obviously Rudiger's brother has said that they've got some sort of agreement in place with Real Madrid, and he obviously had a meeting with Bayern Munich last week as well? I mean, it's pretty clear that Rudiger is obviously going. How do you feel about that? And how do you feel about the fact that so-called lesser players, if we're putting it nicely at the club, are being paid a lot more than he has, and they're playing a much lesser role?
Yeah, to be fair with the Rudiger situation, I kind of made peace with it a long time ago, probably like a month or 2 ago, because this has been going on a lot longer than people think. I mean, even a couple of months ago, something about, Simon Johnson saying the club aren't any closer, it's not looking good. And now some people are kind of shocked, but I'm not. I've kind of made peace with it. And to be fair, it's a difficult one for me because when you're a fan, you just want everyone to stay. And, he gives a lot of dedication to Chelsea, but I can kind of see the point, when you're performing at such a high level for like Chelsea throughout the past 6 months to a year since Tuchel's come in. Of course, when contract talks come around, you're going to want more than players such as Kepa, I think, was in the reports. Loftus-Cheek, even the likes of Alonso was the main one for me. He's a bit part player, and yet Chelsea are going to offer him less than someone who's a bit part player. It just doesn't really seem right to me. So I can understand his point of view, but at the same time, from a selfish point of view, from a fan, I would like him to stay if he loves the club that much. But I mean, when you sit back and think about it logically, this is his last contract, his last big deal. So yeah, I can kind of see the sense behind him leaving. I mean, if you're Rudiger and you get offered like 300-400k at Real Madrid and you're only being offered 140, I think it is, the Athletic said here, then what are you going to really do realistically? As much as you like Chelsea, it's business at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm not surprised, to be honest, Charlie.
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I think this, as you said, Price has been coming. It has been coming for a while. I mean, also got to remember there is the trail of thought, but actually Rudiger's been at Chelsea for what, 3 or 4 years now. I mean, I think he came under Antonio Conte, and really we're only seeing this level of performance for like the past 6 months. And I think this back 3 system is obviously massively helping him out. But if we offered him a big contract, which he kind of does deserve, I mean, we know that Chelsea's a revolving door for managers. Tuchel's doing fantastic work at the moment, but, you know, in a year's time, he could easily not be here. That's just the way the club is run at the moment. And a new manager might come in, might switch to a back four. And Rudiger, perhaps in my opinion, doesn't really suit that system as well as a back three. So you could have Antonio Rudiger sitting on a massive contract, not reaching this same level because the system changes. So do you think it's just kind of finding that balance? And ultimately, the club are probably thinking that we've got the likes of Chalobah, Colwell on loan at Huddersfield, etc. Obviously, strongly linked with Jules Koundé. They're still interested. That probably not January, but possibly next summer, and other options about that. It's kind of it's okay to let Rudiger go. Would you think that's what they're kind of thinking?
Potentially. What I will find very interesting though is if we sign like a Jules Koundé and we offer him like even more than we've offered Rudiger, then I think that's a bit unacceptable personally, because I think Tuchel, I don't even have to say I think Tuchel wants Rudiger to stay as one of the main cogs in this back three. And as long as we stick to the back three, then 100% he's worth the money that he wants, which is £200,000. So, he's been an absolute key player. He starts almost every single game, even when the side gets rotated, he usually starts. So, I don't think Tuchel will be happy that he will leave, which is what it seems like. But at the same time, it's up to Chelsea and the recruitment department to bring in someone that Tuchel's going to be happy with and that will perform to a similar level than Rudiger has been doing. Because, you know, if it's anyone that performs to, a lesser level than Rudiger has over the past 6 months to a year, then, yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be those conversations. You know, what did the board actually not offering more money for, you know, realistically. So,
yeah, I mean, like at the end, I know like 200k is a lot of money, but in footballing terms and the wage structure at Chelsea, that's not a lot of money to be shelling out on a top performer for the club. So, like when you see the likes of Werner on almost 300k, I mean, look, we love Ruben Loftus-Cheek, but for Rudiger to be on less money than him with a new contract offer given his form is quite frankly disrespectful. But I think ultimately it is going to end in a parting of ways, and I expect some sort of pre-contract agreement may well be announced in January. But we've got the infrastructure and we've got the money and we've got the talent coming through the academy that, you know, this loss, big as it is, it's not. I don't think it's going to set the club back too much, as it were. But moving on to another defender who still hasn't signed his deal and is at obviously a much younger age, and someone that out of the two, you would obviously choose to keep Andreas Christensen over Rudiger, preferably, in my opinion, just with the age factor and the longevity factor. What do you make of the news that, I'm just going to bring it up now, that Fabrizio Romano's tweeted out that obviously Christensen still hasn't signed the contract. Chelsea feel quite relaxed about it. Just brought it up now. He's been approached again by Barcelona for a free agent in June 22, and AC Milan are keen to replace him with Simon because Simon Kjær's out for the season. But both those clubs feel that he's going to extend with Chelsea in the next weeks and days. I mean, this has been rumbling on for a while. I mean, why do you feel that this contract of Christensen hasn't been signed?
Purely down to his agent, which is again another family member. I believe it's his dad. I had a theory that, well, it's not really a theory, but I mean, Chelsea and Christensen were ready to sign. Christensen was ready to sign the contract for 5 years. And I think before he was about to sign, his dad stepped in and said, you know, look, do you realise how good you've been this year? Let's just wait a little bit longer, you know, see what happens. And I think that's why it's dragged on. I think he's getting an earful from everyone. I don't really feel like Christensen is the authoritative character himself. So I think maybe his dad's controlling these things. That's why I don't really like families as agents. I just don't think they're professional enough, especially with the way the goalposts have moved in terms of contract length for Christensen. Like 1 minute was 5, next minute was 3, now it's apparently 4, like, or 3 plus 1. Like what on earth is going on here? Like seriously, it seems an absolute mess. But to me, I don't really take much notice of that. You know, tweet from Fabrizio is kind of generic. It's kind of, you know, Chelsea, you know, extend his contract next days/weeks. I mean, well, yeah, well done. That's what we've been expecting, you know, for the last days/weeks already. Days/weeks is kind of a guess. That's kind of, I mean, if we expect him to sign it, like I just don't understand why has it not been done today if it's all
Well, yeah.
it's just it doesn't make any sense. Something's going on. It just doesn't feel right to me.
Well, I mean, this is it, mate. Like for me, I mean, as I said, like these reports that Christensen's deal was done and dusted, 5 years agreed. He just needs to sign. He just needed to sign for months. So, I mean, a hold up of whether it's 3, 4, or 5 years, that can't be that difficult to sort out. I mean, it must be something different. I know a 5-year deal was agreed, but then he was thinking, actually don't want to be here for the next 5, maybe sign for 3, and I could sign again for another 2 years afterwards, but maybe assess my options there. I get that trail of thinking. As a player, I think Christensen, he's maybe 24, 25, could be a little bit younger. If you sign for 3 years, takes you to 28 in your prime, you might fancy a big move if you're still in form. And if you're under contract for 5 years, can be a little bit more difficult to leave, etc. But this shouldn't be taking this long to sort out. And I just hope the club can get it done and we don't end up losing Christensen and Rudiger, because I don't think that could be a bigger problem. But Pys, just to round out on the defence before we move on, mate. Azpilicueta, another defender out of contract. The captain, he's won everything at the club. He's been an absolute stalwart. I mean, what a guy. He's not signed the contract. This is one that you'd think would have been done. It would be easy to do. A lot of reports linking in with Barcelona. Can you see him leaving at the end of the season on a free and going back to Spain to play for Barcelona, where he'll get offered a longer contract and he'll probably play a lot more football as well?
Personally, not next summer. I think maybe the summer after, potentially. But I think next summer or next season he will stay for 1 more year. I think he'll sign a 1-year extension. I've always thought this, and I mean, I really trust the Athletic a lot. They've said, it's no rush. They expect things to be done. It's kind of, with Azpi and the board, it seems to be, they've got such a strong relationship that can really be one that is left to the last minute. Azpi's happy to stay. So, yeah, maybe an option to Spain is interesting. But from what I've been seeing, I don't really take much notice in those reports. There's not been really a reliable journalist yet or a source that's come out and said things are developing. It's kind of more newspapers and just the general rubbish you usually get, because you got to think, like, if the aim of the game is to get clicks, basically, and viewers and attraction to your newspaper or your website, whatever you're broadcasting that information on. So they've probably likely taken, for example, a report from someone really reliable like The Athletic, found the rumour that Spain's not really, it's kind of an option, but it's maybe a consideration a little bit, and they've kind of run with it. Oh yeah, Barca are really interested in it, and then all of a sudden, Chelsea fans can overreact. But for me personally, I think he stays. I think that's one that's I would be very, very shocked if he's not here next season. I just can't see a way that he isn't, because as well we'd have to probably sign someone else. And I mean, like I don't know. Maybe until like Livramento comes back, maybe in a couple of years or something like that. I don't think Azpi will leave, because I do expect us to re-sign Livramento at some point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's important we don't let too many of these defenders go, because, as you say, we're going to have to end up spending a lot of money to replace them. So, I mean, ideally, I think for Azpi, yeah, like, you wouldn't blame him if he left, but we should be doing everything we can to keep him. He could still do a solid job, and that experience in and around the dressing room, he's been there and done it all, won everything, is so important for players coming into the club and the youngsters that are coming up through the ranks. So we really need to be keeping him. But I mean, I expect Christensen and Azpi to stay. I think we know Rudiger's gone now. I think we accept that. We just make peace with the fact he's going to be moving on. But yeah, I don't think we can afford to be losing either of the other two, because then I think you're starting to have a few problems at the back. But I mean, that's kind of enough on the defence. Moving on to the other end of the pitch, Pys. Obviously, we spent big money in the summer on Romelu Lukaku, close to £100 million. Were you pleased to see the club bring him back? Do you think that's the sort of, did that excite you in the summer?
Absolutely, I was gassed. I was absolutely gassed. One of the most excited I've been for a transfer in a long time, because, coming off the back of last season, the thing is we needed a finisher in front of goal. And at the moment, the style of play isn't really working with him. There's a few things that I think need to be changed, but we've all got our own ideas. But yeah, overall, I'm gassed. I think he's got quite a lot of time in him left. And I think I saw a good tweet the other day saying, Lukaku scored goals at club. If he doesn't score here, then it can't be his problem, surely. Like, he is the most proven goal scorer you could have got on the market. Like, even with Haaland, he's only been around a couple of years. Lukaku is one of these guys that has actually scored 100 plus Premier League goals and gone to a different league and proved himself in different systems. Belgium, he's like one of their top scorers in the history. Like, he's a ridiculous player. We just need to get the best out of him, and I'm sure that will come with time. And it's one of the reasons why I've been defending him, really, because I've been a fan of Lukaku for years, man. Like, I know what he can do. So for people to turn around and tell me he's rubbish or he don't suit us, like, that's just nonsense, man. Like, he's new to the team, and I know people are impatient because they want instant impact. So do I. But you got to remember, he's had injuries. We're still adapting him to the system. He does need to do more things, like, move around more. Kind of do. I was making a reference earlier on a stream that I was on that. You remember when we had Higuain and Jorginho would make those over the top balls, because even though Higuain was slow, his movement was very good. He was constantly, changing direction, darting out in through defences. Lukaku at the moment is very, very static. Juventus away was a great example on Bonucci and Chiellini all game. Very, very central. I'm not sure if that's instructions, but you see when we have Kai playing, the movement, even, it doesn't have to be crazy movement, but, come for the ball out on the left-hand side, move to the right, move back to the middle. It's why we're so unpredictable with Kai up top, because you don't know who's where a lot of the time. And at the moment, we just seem to be very predictable with him. But overall, I was very excited, that we brought him back.
Yeah, no, I was as well. Look, don't get me wrong, Haaland would have been fantastic and we would have been absolutely loving it. But I personally feel that we would probably be having this conversation now if we had Haaland, probably quite a similar conversation. There's no doubt that, he's not the same player as Lukaku, but I think he'd have the same problems with this system. And Lukaku, I hate seeing Lukaku getting stick on socials and stuff, Look, West Ham, it was clear he wasn't fit. You could tell. Tuchel come out afterwards saying he wasn't fit to play 45 minutes. Yes, he was poor, but he wasn't fit. Yes, he needs to do a bit more, but I think we just need to relax a little bit. Yes, we spent a lot of money on him. The guy's been injured for about 6 or 7 weeks. That's missing training time on the pitch, getting integrated with the players, working on team shape, working on movement, etc. That he's completely missed. So he's missed a large chunk of the season. And yes, he's got to do more when he's on the pitch, perhaps a bit more movement, etc. But, there's certain players that you sign and they're worth changing your system for to fit him in, the likes of, your Ronaldos, etc. Obviously your Haalands, your Messis and whatnot. Those are the kind of players that if you sign them, you change the system to make it work. We spent this money on Lukaku, so he's going to play every week. So we need to, there's no point, not playing to his strengths. Pys, what do you feel that we need to do as a collective to get the best out of Lukaku? Because obviously at the moment, I don't feel we're putting enough balls into the box. We're not, people say that he doesn't run. He does run. He runs channels for Belgium. He's run channels for Inter. I know the system's a little bit different at Chelsea, but what do you feel that A, we need to do to get more out of him? And B, what does he need to do as well?
The one thing I suggested recently was more like a 3-4-1-2 formation where he has someone else to link up with. Not necessarily Werner like we saw against City, I don't think that worked, but I'd like to see him and Havertz with maybe like Mount just in behind them. That way, Lukaku can drift off more to the right-hand side, sort of right striker, cutting on his left foot, because that's what he does really well for Belgium. Basically, the goal we need to get with Lukaku over the next few weeks is to get him one-on-one with defenders and facing up against people, not with his back, because it's just no use doing that, in my opinion. He can do the hold-up play, but if we're going to get goals from him, other than just cutbacks into the box, which you haven't even had for Lukaku yet, but if we're going to be more unpredictable, I think we need to play a variation of 2 up top or something similar to that. Will we do that? I don't think so. I think he's probably going to say a lone striker, but it's going to be all about chemistry, trying to find players that fit with him. But yeah, I just want to see what Tuchel does, to be honest, because it can't stay the same thing. I'm not a manager, so I want to see what he does tactically to change things.
Yeah, something's got to change. At the moment, it's not working, and I think it's fair to say that, yes, as you mentioned earlier, you expect instant success when you spend that much money on a proven player. But don't get me wrong, he spent 2 years in Italy, banged the goals in there, but it's completely different to the Premier League. I know he's played here before, scored over 100 Premier League goals, but there's a readjustment period. and the fact, as I mentioned, he's been injured as well. He's missed out on time integrating with the team. He will get it right, and this will be a successful signing, in my opinion. But Pys, is there any part of you that worries that, you know, we've signed a lot of centre forwards over the years, and realistically, you know, only Drogba and Costa have been successful. We've spent money on Morata, you know, Shevchenko, Torres, all top players in on their day and in their time. And, you know, none of those worked out. It's obviously very early. I'm not saying Lukaku's not going to work out. I think it will. But is there a trail of thought, you know, in your mind at the back somewhere that maybe Lukaku might not work out?
Of course, I had the same with Haaland. I would have had the same even with Harry Kane. I would have had the same with anyone. As soon as someone gets that number 9 shirt for Chelsea, I always think of the worst. But that's just me personally. But I think what I would say about Lukaku is he's the type of profile that's never really failed at Chelsea.
Yeah.
I mean, even look at Giroud. He didn't fail at Chelsea. He did very well. You look at Costa, as you mentioned, Drogba. These are all the profiles that succeed at Chelsea. So I think that's why we went for that big, you know, big in frame, big in size striker in the summer. Whereas before we've had like flair players like a Torres, like a Morata. Even though they're quite tall, they're not built the same. They're not beasts, you know, like Drogba, Lukaku, like Costa, like others we've had. So like a Giroud. So yeah, there's definitely that thought in the back of my head. But again, I come back to my point. If Lukaku doesn't fail here, I generally think it's because of the manager or because of system/players, because there's no way a proven goal scorer like Lukaku should not be, you know, delivering us trophies. So yeah, I don't personally think it will come down to him, because he's given. I mean, even at Manchester United when he was out of shape, he still scored. I think 12. Like he scored 12 Premier League goals one season, which was, you know, as average, but he scored 16 the next. But I think in that season he scored like 25 in all comps. Like, Lukaku can bang goals even when he's not, like, he doesn't necessarily have to play well. That's the thing. And that's what people agreed on in the summer, is we just needed someone in the box. But at the same time, we had Giroud and Tammy for that to score the tap-ins. Like with Lukaku, there's like an extra dimension, an extra thing we can get out of him. You know, there's so many different ways we can use him. We can play a counter-attack with him. We can play 2 up top. We can play, you know, 4 at the backs. You know, there's so many. We can play him off the right as well, because that's kind of where he actually played for Inter Milan. Was he drifted in off the right and linked up with the striker, and then, you know, took shots and gained those central areas. But he was actually, if you look at his heat maps for Inter, it was more off the right than centrally. Whereas at the moment he's just bang in the centre, and it's kind of just there, right? It's not like his the impact's not there.
Mate, I know it's early days in his Chelsea career still, but every time I've seen him play, are you surprised at how few chances we actually create for him in a game? Given the fact we've got all these creative players, the likes of your Mason Mounts, your Hudson-Odoi, your Pulisic, your Havertz, etc., your Hakim Ziyech's. Are you surprised? You know, I'm certainly surprised that we don't seem to create a lot of opportunities for him.
Absolutely, there was even one against West Ham United. I think pretty sure it was Hudson-Odoi. Lukaku came on, and like 2 or 3 minutes later, Hudson-Odoi had the ball at the edge of the box, and it was like a simple cutback. Lukaku drew away from the defender and kind of made some space. And Hudson-Odoi saw him. He tried to pass him, but he passed straight to the defender. And I'm just like, little things like that. If I could go back and get a clip, I'm like, if Lukaku gets that with the space he had, he's going to score that. He's like inside the box. But then I say that to people, and it's if, buts, and maybes. Well, yeah, you have to do if, buts, and maybes, because you have to look at the game in context and actually analyse things rather than just say crap. Like even when we aren't creating the chances, we have had occasions where, you know, we could create the chance for him. Like, we don't even necessarily have to do much. Look at Zenit, who we're playing tomorrow. We literally just did a cross in the box. He scored a header. Yeah. Like, it's not hard. We're just making everything so hard for ourselves. And one thing I mentioned earlier on a stream was I just feel like we play so slow as well lately. Like, even with Havertz, I just feel like we play slow. We build up too slow. That's why I love Kovacic, because he's playing those punchy passes, quick, progressive passes into him. And yeah, everything's just really slow at the moment. I kind of think it's because Alonso's come back in the side as well. Mainly because we do attack down the left a lot, and I just think it's messed everything up having Chilwell out personally.
Yeah, no, it's made a big difference, especially with the system we play as well. Sacrificing an attacking player for an extra defender. the wing backs become so important. Obviously, Reece James doing a great job down the right-hand side, and Chile was also doing a fantastic job. I mean, Alonso has played well in his Chelsea career. He's not the same as Chilwell, but you notice so much when Alonso's playing that we miss out on so much, intensity going forward, etc. But I mean, on a separate note, Pys, do you feel that we actually lack creativity as a side in general? Because obviously we touched on the fact we don't create a lot of chances for Lukaku currently. Do you feel in general we lack creativity? I know it sounds a ridiculous thing to be asking given the array of attacking players we've got, but I just feel in certain games, and definitely recently, we've lacked a lot of creativity.
Yeah, it's actually very true that we've been saying for a couple of, or maybe one or a couple of summers now. I mean, Ziyech does it here and there, but he doesn't start all the time. He kind of does it in bits and pieces. I think, our best attacker for me is Hudson-Odoi, and I think that's proven by the graphs. He has some of the best attacking creative stats per 90 in the Premier League this season. I think he's in the top 5 behind Adama, Grealish, and a couple of others. So he's right up there when he plays with the minutes he's getting. And he constantly creates stuff, every single game. But yeah, I mean, in general, Werner's not a creator. Mount, yeah, so. He does create quite a bit. But, it's not to like a De Bruyne or a Grealish level. Like, we've not got that one. It's not like a Hazard. Hazard created ridiculous amounts of chances every single game. We're just too inconsistent. That's the problem up front. Even Pulisic, great player on his day. Even when since he's come back, don't think he's played very well at all.
He's been poor. I like Pulisic, a big fan of his, and he did well when he came on against Leicester, and it's great that he's back fit again. But I thought he was poor against Juventus when he was false 9. He was not good against Watford when he started, and he was not good against West Ham when he came on either. I mean, the guys need to start offering more. This is your opportunity to get back in the lineup. I know it's hard to do something in, say, 15, 20 minutes, but if that's the opportunity, the window you've got to impress Tuchel and get back in the lineup, then you need to take it. And it's not just him. There's a lot of players that aren't offering enough at the moment. They're not bringing enough to the table. I mean, do you feel that attacking-wise, we're still not quite there as a unit? Do you feel there's still a lot of work to do? I mean, it's easy to forget that we are still just under a year into this Tuchel project, and we're probably still getting used to it, and development will come and improvement will come. But do you feel like attacking-wise, I know defensively massive improvements from Lampard, but attacking end of the pitch, I don't know. You may disagree with this, but I'm not sure if there's that much improvement than when Frank was here.
Yeah, I could say that, I guess. I think, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, under Lampard, we scored quite a few goals,
yeah.
but still, I still prefer watching us under Tuchel. I can't lie.
Definitely.
But yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to actually look at the stats. Maybe that's something I'll do over the course of the next week or so. Sort of compare the stats and goals and chances created and stuff between the two managers. But yeah, I mean, the signings Lampard brought in, like Ziyech, like Werner. I mean, those two for me are two of the ones that are going to leave next summer for sure. I think even Ziyech said in an interview the other day he wants to go back to Ajax. So I'm like, all right,
he's keen to go back. Yeah.
See you later, mate. So see you later, Ziyech. And I think Werner. I mean, let's not lie here. I'm pretty sure. I'm 90% certain he's going back to Germany. He's going back to Germany.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to criticise players, and look, Timo is popular with the Chelsea fans, and we want it to work out, but. Since Tuchel's come in, you've seen improvement in a lot of players, noticeable improvement.
Yeah.
And for me, Werner hasn't improved at all under Tuchel, and he doesn't look like he's going to get any better. This just looks like this is what we're going to get from Werner. He doesn't look like improving at all. That for me is the biggest problem, and he won't go in January, but with a club like Chelsea, ruthless with managers, it's ruthless with players as well. Werner's come in to score goals. He hasn't delivered. Simple as that, really.
Not only that, it's like I was on a space the other day, and I think Monster CFC brought it up. If you know who that is, he said, how can you have Nagelsmann, Flick, and Tuchel as your last 3 managers / 2 managers at the moment and not improve one bit technically? Like, that's just worrying. Like, there's no improvement technically. Like, he's and there's not enough space in the Premier League. He'll absolutely thrive in the Bundesliga or another league, but here, no, he's, if you don't have the space in the Premier League, your technical ability at times can get you out of trouble. Even when Ziyech has had lack of space, he's got that left foot to rely on. Like when Pulisic runs out of space, dribbles out of it. Werner hasn't got that. He hasn't got dribbling. He hasn't got that ability, that tight touches. Like every now and again, sure, but every now and again isn't good enough. We're Chelsea. He's one of our main signings last summer. We paid 50 million for him, and the fact that we thought that was a steal at the time, and now we're probably lucky to get 40 mil for him, I think is kind of testament to how bad his Chelsea career's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion, mate. I honestly think that similar to Morata, I feel that Werner is a good striker. He's just not a Premier League striker. I think he's just someone that will be good in Bundesliga if he goes back. He'd be good in Serie A or La Liga. Different style of football, a lot more space. A bit like Morata. I just don't think Werner's a Premier League striker. And the fact that realistically he's only effective against teams that play a high line. If you play Werner against a low block like we've seen against Man United, he's useless. We don't get anything. So
as well, yeah. But I think one of the problems is as well, even though his finishing wasn't even that great in Leipzig, like he missed quite a lot of chances. He would have to kind of have 5 shots. He'd probably score 2 or 3. He wasn't a take every shot and score striker. He wasn't absolutely clinical. But some of the goals I was watching the other day from Leipzig, like coming off the left-hand side, remember that Fulham one under Lampard? I was like, he's not going to score this. But at Leipzig, he would have buried that. Like, it's just, like, I don't know what's wrong with him. Like, some of his shots nowadays, well, not even some, most of them, they're either P-rollers or they go wide or over the bar. Like, it's just, I don't know what's happened to his finishing, because it used to be so much better.
Yeah, it's everything that could go wrong has basically gone wrong. I mean, I'd love it to work out, but ultimately, I think I can't see any improvement in the next 6 months. And I think ultimately Chelsea, if we can bring in, I mean, I'm not saying Chiesa's going to come, but if we could bring in someone like Chiesa, we've also been linked with that Porto winger that I can't remember his name. It's left me. That's
also,
the one.
Also Anthony as well.
And Anthony, if we can get rid of Werner and bring in a Luis Diaz or an Anthony, I'm taking it all day long. Or even if we could potentially, I mean, this might sound ridiculous. If we could, I know Haaland, people think that's not going to happen. I still think there's a possibility that we could get Haaland. I know it might be small, but if we could use Werner and money to get Haaland, I think Dortmund might potentially take that. I mean, that might sound ridiculous, but
that would be quite something. If we had him and Lukaku, that would be.
Yeah, I mean, people think that Haaland won't come to Chelsea because we've got Lukaku. Haaland, realistically, for me, and this is a little bit of a tangent, is not that many clubs that he can go to in England, Manchester City or Chelsea, for basically winning trophies. Those are the only two really at the moment. Man United are in the mud still. They might win an FA Cup or something, but Haaland wants instant success. Those are your 2 teams in England. Barcelona can't afford him. Real Madrid can, but would he go there with Mbappe as well? Not sure. And he's not going to go to PSG. So, we do have a good opportunity. But yeah, I mean, for me, Werner back to the Bundesliga in the summer is probably what's looking likely to happen. Just come full circle on Lukaku. Pys, do you think the option to get him firing is just to keep playing him, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. I said this. I think we just need to keep with him. Make sure that his fitness is all right as well, because I think Tuchel said against West Ham he shouldn't have brought him on. So I'll be interested to see what happens tomorrow night. Because if he starts him, like 2 or 3 days later after he said he's not fit to even come on for 45 minutes, that's a bit
odd, that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit odd. It kind of makes himself look a bit silly. But to be fair, I rate Tuchel's honesty. I mean, he blames it all on himself at the moment. Whether that not will last, I hope so, because what we know about Chelsea is as soon as the manager blames someone else, that's it. It goes up in smoke. So
I think
it
doesn't tend to end so well. I mean, I think Lukaku's too good a player not to work out, and I think Chelsea, with the players they've got, the manager they've got, there's too much quality to not get the best out of him. And it might take a little bit more time, but I think ultimately we will see the best of Lukaku, and he will start scoring the goals. And when he does, we're going to be a force to be reckoned with. But Pys, just moving on to obviously we're in the midst now of the dreaded Christmas period for Chelsea. It either goes well or it doesn't go well. I mean, this was ultimately the undoing of Frank Lampard last season, went on a horrid run. Obviously, we've kicked off December with with obviously a loss to West Ham, not great. I'm just going to bring the fixtures up now. The games are coming thick and fast. We've got Zenit tomorrow night. Then we've got Leeds on Saturday, Everton on Thursday. And then we've got a couple of tough games. Wolves and Villa are both away from home. Not easy games, sandwiched with Brentford in the Cup. Brighton. And then we obviously got Liverpool and City to start the new year. I mean, Pys, obviously this is not going to win us the league. But if we don't do well in this run of fixtures, we could certainly put ourselves out of contention.
100%. This is the stage of the season where I worry about the most, honestly. I think generally this just not decides the season, but it could do, to be honest. Like, if we go on a horrible run, it could do. It could decide whether or not we're in the race. I mean, I think I look at that fixture list, I think winnable games, but then I think we're Chelsea. We've got loads of injuries. I know what we like. We could easily draw at Wolves or lose. Everton and Leeds, I expect us to win because we're at home, but the one that jumps out at me, and I've been saying this all along, I don't like that Aston Villa fixture away. I think that's going to be a really tough game. I don't like that 5:30 kickoff. Gerrard's been doing really well. Yeah, that one stinks of a draw or a loss for me.
I mean, we haven't done well at Villa Park. We lost there on the last day of the season last season. I know ultimately it didn't matter for the top four.
It's like another St James's Park for me. I just don't like playing there. I'm never confident. Same with Goodison. Don't like it.
Yeah, no, it's tough. I mean, Pys, looking at that, and we've touched on the injuries. I mean, I know Chalobah's is much better than first fit, and he should be back to play a part, which is great news. But how much of a concern is it that we seem to be picking up a lot of injuries just at the point when the fixtures are coming thick and fast, and we're not going to be able to rotate as much as we perhaps would have liked to have done?
Yeah, it's just our luck as well, isn't it? Like, I can't, speculate. I can only speculate whether it's, training ground, scheduled or maybe the intensity, but I don't know. It's definitely bad because we're getting them a lot in midfield as well, where we're probably our strongest. We've got Jorginho, Kante, Kovacic. I mean, those are three world-class players for me. So, yeah, and all three have got problems at the moment. So that's really not a good sign. I mean, we're very light in midfield here as well. It's not long before Loftus-Cheek's going to pick up an injury because he's been overplayed, overloaded, as Tuchel likes to say with that phrase. Yeah, I can only hope for the best. And I mean, Chalobah coming back is nice. Havertz back in training is nice. But, Kovacic got the Rona now as well. It's just such bad luck. And it's at the point of the season where it seems to always derail us. But, I mean, if Tuchel can get out of this and still be, even if we're not top by sort of after Christmas, we've got Liverpool and City. Those are the games. We win one of those games and draw the other, I think we can win the league personally.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've always looked ahead to that Liverpool game on the 2nd of January as like the key game. If we get through this Christmas period, I know we're 2 points off the top now. If we're top or we're within 5 points of the top with those two games to come, I feel we're banging with a chance. But, if for whatever reason we go on a bit of a poor run and we're perhaps over 5 points behind, I think we could be potentially in trouble there. But this period's so key. And over the years with Chelsea, if this period goes well, we tend to end the season well. And 9 times out of 10, we win the league. Ultimately, if it doesn't go well, we don't win the league. And sometimes the manager ends up getting sacked. I'm not saying Tuchel's going to be sacked, of course. But, like a poor run at Christmas, we've seen it last season with Lampard. I mean, I don't think Roman would hesitate at all to pull the trigger on Tuchel if we went on a run of 5 losses in 8 games. So it's fine margins, but as you say, the squad rotation is going to be so important. And City and Liverpool will drop points over this Christmas period as well. But, we've got some tough games. And, this is such a crucial part of the season. Do you feel, Pys, that if we get through this, then the league is definitely on?
100%, because I think, I'm not sure if you can scroll down sort of our fixtures after Man City and Liverpool, but I mean we've played a lot of the big teams already, man.
We go Club World Cup as well, a bit further
down.
I
was going to say that could be kind of a bit of a distraction from the Premier League, and I hope not many players get injured there. But I think just generally we've played a lot of the top sides already. I mean, like you look at that run there where we've got Newcastle, Norwich, Brentford at home, Southampton. That's 4 wins there for me straight away.
Yeah, we haven't
If we
got
don't
any
get
tough
4 out of
away
4 on that,
trips. I mean, realistically, Pice,
Leeds is kind of
yeah, I mean, apart from going to Manchester City, until we get to the penultimate day of the season, the only other tough away trip to a big side is Old Trafford. So we get to January,
exactly.
we get to start of January, and the only big ground we've got left to visit, obviously in inverted commas, is Old Trafford. I mean, that's not a bad position to be in.
It's a fantastic position to be in, but at the same time, like I don't know, because of our creative issues and because of just what I've seen with Chelsea in the past, i.e. Burnley recently as an example, we can still dominate these teams and end up drawing because of, something that happens late on. Whereas I feel with Man City and Liverpool, it's just in 30 minutes, it's 2-0 and it's over, because of their attackers. It's like, man, I watched City the other day against Watford. That was what they did to them was absolutely disgusting. Yeah. And when they literally, I haven't watched City in a while, but I watched them and I was like, oh my god, these guys are actually insane. Like they were like 3-0 up or something in like 70 minutes. They brought Mahrez and De Bruyne on. Like,
it's criminal. It's a joke, isn't it?
It's next level. Like if we win the league against these lot and Klopp's Liverpool, yeah.
I mean, I think that's the difference for me between the three sides. I think as a unit, I think we're the best unit in terms of defensively and as a team.
That's
overall.
why I like us more in cup games, bro.
Yeah,
I said this all along.
But for Man City and Liverpool, you look at the Burnley and the United games, you can see why City and Liverpool battered United because they're so clinical. They just rip through them.
So good.
We can't do that, or we don't do that often enough. Like, when those players turn up for City and Liverpool, they're just going to blow teams away. Yes, they'll drop this, they'll lose games. All teams will. But when was the last time we I know obviously Juventus was recently, but in the league and stuff, apart from beating Norwich 7-0, when was the last time we kind of turn up and just ripped a team apart? You don't really see that. I mean, I'm happy to win games 1-0, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. I remember the last, probably not the last time, but the one that comes to my mind was when we beat Palace. I think it was 4-0 or something. Pulisic scored that close range goal, and that was a really good game. I just remember us like turning up. Thought it was going to be a hard game. It was in one of the lockdowns, and we just absolutely destroyed them. I was like, if only we could do this every week. But our attack is just it's not City and Liverpool. We're very good at grinding out results, but we seem to tend to score 1 or 2 goals a game, sometimes 3. But yeah, I mean we're miles away from the attack that those two have for sure.
100%. I mean, mate, just to round off very briefly, January transfer window coming up. Tuchel, I think reports are saying that he doesn't want to get rid of Werner or Ziyech in January. Wants to keep the squad depth. I think that's a sensible decision. Do you think any players are going to leave in January, Pies?
No, I don't think so. Maybe Sarr on loan.
Yeah,
because I think there was some talks about AC Milan, but I think all the main players will stay unless some opportunity comes up where maybe you can replace a Ziyech or a Werner, but I don't think so. January's very, very hard window to get deals, and to be honest, it's one of those where prices are high. No one wants to let go of anyone, and it's generally not really a fun window for me personally. It's not one that I look forward to.
Yeah, and in terms of incomings, do you expect any business to be done? Obviously, there's all the talk about, are we going to get someone in at left wing back? Are we going to recall Maatsen, who I think would be a wrong decision? We're going to get Emerson recalled or whatever. We're going to go and buy someone. Do you feel any incomings?
Personally, no. I don't think we'll sign anyone. I think that's probably going to be our downfall. I definitely think, especially if we have, if we have a lot of injuries still, maybe we bring someone in. But I feel like, especially with the left wing back position, Chilwell is obviously going to be out for a while. If he needs surgery, we may recall Maatsen. But I think the Athletic did an article and said like Emerson won't be coming back because he's playing really well, and they've got a 12 million buy option, so that's basically easy money for Chelsea.
Yeah.
And you'd be letting go of that if you brought him back. But I don't expect anyone to come in. I mean, there's talks of Koundé, but we would have to activate his release clause.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 68 mil. We're not doing that. Stupid.
No,
but we ain't doing that.
No.
And until Rudiger or someone goes, we ain't making any big defensive moves.
No, definitely not. I mean, mate, just before we wrap up, I just want to bring this up. Obviously, a Spurs fan, I don't know if he's trolling us, but Champions of Europe draw into Burnley and a Carrick United plus City will win the league. City could win the league, but at least our club isn't tweeting out photos of their manager holding the FA Cup that he won with Chelsea to celebrate the third round draw. So, yeah, we'll get rid of that. And, yeah, we'll save the Spurs embarrassment there. Mate, Pys, seems like a good place to finish. Thank you so much for joining me. If people want to check your workout, your Twitter, your website, etc., that's the best place for them to head.
Oh yeah, for sure, bro. I'm always tweeting out news and things like that. So yeah, mainly for news, but also like I do like comps and obviously general match day opinions and all that.
Yeah, nice, spot on. I've linked that in the description below. So guys, make sure you do that. And yeah, all that's left to be said, guys, if you've tuned in live on YouTube, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for the support. Make sure you do smash like on this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Closing in on 200 subscribers now. So make sure you help me get over that line before Christmas. And this will be up on iTunes and Spotify and everywhere else in the next day or so. So make sure you check it out and leave a review. Yeah, and that brings full time on another episode of the Blues Brothers podcast with myself and guest Pys. Thanks for joining in, guys. Pys, thanks again for joining me, and we'll catch you in the episode next week.